Today we have the director of FIU's Institute for Public Policy, Brian Fonseca. Brian, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about just how prevalent social media has been in the 2020 presidential election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So how important do you think social media has been in politics, and especially for the campaign management of the election?
Well, I think social media or digital marketing has become overwhelmingly impactful to campaigns. I mean, it does two things really. It increases the reach and increases the speed of messaging. You know, you can use digital platforms for not just promoting and marketing, but also disinformation and misinformation. And so I think this is another really important thing, especially when you look in the South Florida market, when you see massive disinformation campaigns around, painting the Biden-Harris ticket as socialist or sort of progressives, aligning them to, people like Fidel Castro or Hugo Chavez. I think that was part of disinformation campaigning, in which you leveraged, again, the speed and the reach of digital platforms to try to shape the behavior or shape the cognition of constituencies. We saw that in South Florida. Of course, we saw it on the other side too, campaigns that were trying to paint, any one Republican as racist. I mean, those are the types of ways in which these digital platforms are being used today to amplify the message.
So do you think that creators, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they kind of feel like it's a double-edged sword in a way, where we try and censor it here, but it's going to get out anyways. So why put the responsibility on us to begin with? It should just be the responsibility of the originator.
That's a great point, and I'm not sure how that's going to be reconciled. Now, so Trump can come out on election night and claim fraud, and it may be live, and you can't do anything about the live feed. But then news stations have a choice on whether or not they rebroadcast, and they continue to put it out there in the information space. But I do think your point is an important one, and that is, what is the responsibility on digital platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and others to actually have responsibility over the content that's propagating through their platforms. In places like Brazil, in which now platforms are being held criminally liable for the information that their platforms are being used to distribute. And that forced platforms to do things like censor. And this is why, Twitter is saying, well, 48 hours before the election, we're not going to run any campaign ads. And, all of that is a product of the pressure that I think digital platforms are feeling underneath this new information.
How do you think social media, specifically for campaigns, how do you think that's going to look moving forward?
I think you're going to see more rigor in platforms, where platforms are doing more of the, fact checking, or at least flagging tweets. So that's one of the things that you'll now see in Twitter and Facebook, where it'll flag it and say, this may not be truthful information. Around things like, for example, election logistics. I mean, where people are reading tweets that you can't vote past 2 p.m., right? That's false. That's disinformation. But there's got to be a place for us to go to say, it's very easy. All I have to do is go to this place, and I'll get all of the accurate information that I know is curated by an authority, and not a random bot that's out there tweeting things to confuse me and change my voting behavior. So I think more of that focus on the consumer is probably something you're going to see increase a lot over the next 2 years, especially over the next 4 years or 3 years, as we get ready for the 2024 presidential general elections.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your analysis. It was very interesting, and it gave us a different perspective on social media and election. So thank you so much for your time, Brian.
Thanks, Christine. I appreciate it.